Hey, I get it, you're staring at the endless list of 85-inch monsters and wondering if any of them actually deserve a spot in your living room or if you'll just end up with a massive paperweight. You don't want to shell out a fortune on a TV that looks impressive on paper but turns out to be a disappointment when you finally sit down to watch your favorite shows or finally power up that PlayStation 5. The big question is, does this Sony 85-inch 8K BRAVIA XR actually deliver the experience it promises? Or is it another overhyped screen that will sit gathering dust? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the real-world setup. An 85-inch panel is a commitment to basically turning your entire wall into a cinema. That means you need enough space to step back about 9 feet to take in the whole picture without the edges bleeding into your peripheral vision. If your room is a typical 12 by 15-foot family room, the Sony Z9K will dominate the space nicely, but you'll need a sturdy wall mount or a dedicated TV stand that can handle the weight. The unit itself weighs close to 150 pounds, so plan your installation carefully. It's not something you can just toss onto a cheap stand and hope for the best. What really makes this model stand out is the mini LED backlight paired with Sony's cognitive processor XR. In practice, that translates into deeper blacks and brighter highlights that stay consistent across the whole screen. I've seen a few friends who run a home theater setup compare it to their older OLEDs, and the mini LED's ability to hit high peak brightness without blooming is noticeable when watching HDR content like The Mandalorian or Stranger Things. The extra brightness also helps in a well-lit room. If you're watching the TV during the day, you won't be squinting or constantly adjusting the picture settings. Gamers, especially PlayStation 5 owners, will find a few specific features that matter more than just nice to have. The TV supports HDMI 2.1 with 4K 120Hz, VRR, variable refresh rate, and ALLM, auto low latency mode. In everyday use, that means you get an input lag that feels almost invisible, around 10 milliseconds according to Sony's own testing, so fast-paced shooter games feel responsive, and the dynamic sync reduces screen tearing in fast-moving titles. The dedicated game menu lets you tweak picture mode, HDR settings, and even set a custom game profile without diving through a maze of menus. If you love swapping between console, PC, and streaming media, having one place to switch those settings is a practical time saver. Now, who should actually buy this TV? If you are a cinephile with a sizable living room, a serious gamer who already owns a PS5 or a next-gen PC, and you're willing to invest in a proper mounting solution, the Sony Z9K is a solid match. The 8K resolution itself is not a game-changer today because native 8K content is still scarce. However, the upscaling engine does a respectable job of pulling 4K and even 1080p sources up to the panel's native resolution, making movies, sports, and even older games look sharper than on many 4K screens. If you have a streaming subscription that offers 8K titles, like some Amazon Prime or YouTube 8K videos, you'll finally see the difference, a subtle yet real improvement in detail, especially on larger screens. On the flip side, you should skip this TV if your primary concern is budget. At this size and technology level, you're looking at a price tag that competes with high-end home theater projectors. If you're happy with a 65-inch 4K OLED that already hits excellent contrast and color accuracy, you'll probably get more bang for your buck without the need for a massive wall space. Also, if your gaming is limited to 60Hz titles or you don't plan on using the HDMI 2.1 features, the extra cost doesn't translate into a tangible benefit. The same goes for households that mainly watch network TV or basic streaming. The 8K panel and mini LED backlight are overkill for those use cases. Let's get into practical strengths and weaknesses. One practical strength is the integration of Google TV. The interface is streamlined, voice-controlled with Google Assistant, and it pulls together content from most major services without you having to toggle between apps. In a real-world family setting, kids popping in a cartoon, a parent streaming a news broadcast, and a gamer launching a title, the TV can juggle those requests fairly smoothly. The built-in Wi-Fi and Ethernet ports also mean you won't be forced to rely on a separate streaming device. A practical weakness appears when you think about the TV's audio. The built-in speakers are decent for everyday TV watching, but they fall short of delivering a cinematic experience on an 85-inch screen. If you're expecting a full immersion without adding a soundbar or a receiver, you'll find yourself turning the volume up and still missing depth. That's a common trade-off in large-format TVs, but it's worth mentioning because a lot of buyers assume a high-priced TV comes with a high-quality sound system baked in.